County this weekend, a fundraiser was held for a teenager who was shot in the leg during a shooting at Great Mills High School last month when another student opened fire inside the school. Barnes is recovering at home. 16-year-old Janine Weil, as you know, died a week after being shot in that tragedy. In Maryland, lawmakers are focusing on school safety now. Just this week, a Maryland House panel passed a bill that will require public schools to have either their school resource officer or adequate law enforcement coverage ready for the upcoming school year. Middle and elementary schools would have to have these security plans in place for the 2019 school year, and the bill includes an additional $10 million a year for school security. That bill now goes to the House for a vote on Monday. Joining us this morning to talk about this and some of these other issues surrounding school security is Sheriff Mike Evans from Calvert County, who joins us here on the Hill this morning.
Good morning, Tom.
Sheriff, thank you for coming in.
Yes, sir.
You've watched this debate both on the national level and tragically on the local level in the incident we had here locally. What do you make of this? What do we do to secure our school?
Well, we have to do everything we can. I mean, I've been to several forums where these students and teachers are scared, and we have to make them feel secure so they can learn.
Does that include putting armed guards in every Maryland school? Because that's one of the things that people are calling for, that are saying more guns are the answer to this.
I think so. If we can afford to do that, we need to do that.
Does that mean teachers, though?
No, absolutely not. But there are a few exceptions to teachers. Maybe the veteran military that comes back and decides to teach, but not the everyday teachers, no.
What has changed from your perspective in law enforcement? You know, I'm guessing you've been at this a long time.
40 years.
What has changed in how you look at a school now as opposed to when you first started?
Well, we train very hard on responding quickly if we have an active shooter. We do a lot of training for that. Now we want to be in place to stop an active shooter from getting there.
What's the job of a school resource officer? We've been talking so much about these.
Yeah, basically it's mentorship in the school, deal with students, build rapport, and the extra security measure.
Is there something about having that officer there that is a deterrent to this kind of activity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a marked car out front of the school building.
And what does that SRO do as far as dealing with a situation that's maybe, say, somebody who is unarmed cannot do?
Well, he's armed, and if a shooter comes in, he can stop him, like it happened in St. Mary's.
When you talk to your officers about this, what advice do you give them as far as when they pull up on the scene of an incident like we saw at Great Mills, and we saw those officers just run right in? Because, as you know, down in Parkland, there's been a lot of discussion about officers who did not go into that school.
Correct.
What is the standard operating procedure for officers in your department as to how they are to approach a situation?
When they active shooter situation, you line up, and if there's only one officer there and shots are being fired, that officer goes in. We're trained to do that.
So you sit here as a law enforcement officer, and you look at people in groups like the NRA saying that the answer to this is more guns. And then you look at people on the other side, like many of these students who have protested, and who say the answer are no guns. Is there any middle ground between these two groups that you see that could produce something that would be tangible and worthwhile to come out of all of this?
I hope so. I hope the discussion continues. But when you take guns away from people, only the law-abiding people obey that. People that don't obey the law will have guns.
Governor Hogan, of course, unveiled this bill. It's $125 million to start. It bolsters school security. It hardens schools. Will this make a big difference in the state of Maryland as far as protecting our kids?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's still a lot. Well, wait, we're supposed to go farther. The price tag, if you put a police officer in every school, is over $100 million. Now, if you get a contract, retired police officer or a veteran that you can certify as a part-time law enforcement, you can cut that cost down. But
what about the red flag legislation that would get these guns out of the hands that people have mental illness?
That's important. That's very important.
Because you deal with that on a regular basis?
Yes, sir,
or
we
it's
do.
something you
Yes,
see?
sir, we do.
What about the issue as far as due process? That some people who have voiced concern about it are saying, well, are you going to act before these people have due process?
I don't think so. I mean, there's emergency petitions happen all the time when we take somebody's guns because of safety.
Sheriff Mike Evans from Calvert County, we appreciate you coming into us and talking about school security.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
Okay.
Thanks for making the trip up, even in Cherry Blossom season.
Yes, sir.
Good having you. That does it for us this weekend. We'll see you back here next week. Chris Wallace.
The most anticipated event on the planet is coming. And here at Fox, we're all about El Trio.